And to you, good day.
Good day, Bashar. So nice to speak with you.
And you as well.
So right now, everything feels very much in transition.
It is.
And one of the things that is ahead of me is it seems like my dad is going to be transitioning soon.
All right.
Spirit. So it seems like he's going to be transitioning to spirit soon. And I'm just trying to be there for him as best as I can.
Yeah.
And
well, what else do you need to do?
I keep on feeling like I need to do something else, but...
Such as?
Well, I've been, I feel like health-wise, I wish I could have done more for him because
Do not wallow in regret.
Okay.
Otherwise, you are of no help. Remember that what helps the most is to radiate an energy and a vibration of a positive transition so that that energy infuses the area of his presence and allows him to take advantage of riding that wave and riding that energy more smoothly. The regret in that sense will put up resistance.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes.
I've been having some interesting dreams lately, one of which I kind of associate with the idea you might have been hearing. There's been a lot of talk about 5G and like the new 5G towers.
Yes.
That are being put up. And one of my dreams, and I had, I saw these big towers like on every block, and they were like huge and black. And at the top of them, there was this big blue LED eye, and it was just like looking at everybody. It was kind of creepy.
Yes.
And I was, okay. And I was just wondering if you could tell us anything about, I know like 5G and if it has any like effects on our physical body that.
It depends.
Okay.
Depending on how it is tuned. If it is tuned properly, it will not necessarily have detrimental effects. But if it is slightly out of phase, it can, to some degree, affect cellular structure and the immunological system of your body. So they must be tuned precisely in a way that is not detrimental to the cellular structure or immune system of your bodies.
Okay, that's what I was kind of thinking. Now, as an individual, is there anything we can do, or is this something that whoever's putting these 5G up has to do?
There is always something you can do.
Okay.
Always.
Right.
Again, by allowing yourself to remain in a positive state, you can to some degree mitigate some of the effects of a poorly tuned system. But again, the idea is you can also interact with those individuals who may be more directly involved with the creation of the technology in order to explore what can be done and share information in a way that will allow you to feel more participatory in what's going on, and may even change the minds of some of the individuals working on the technology for how they can make sure that it is more precisely tuned to the biomagnetic energy and fields of physical humanity and biological forms on your planet so as not to be detrimental.
Okay, thank you. Also, I wanted to bring up this idea of a story. You might have heard of it, or story legend of the planet Venus. I've heard of it as a planet was once like an Earth that went through different phases of initiation and ascension. And, even the name or the planet Venus, she's referred to as like the morning star, and she's always shining very brightly.
Yeah.
And eventually I've heard that she's to become a sun, like it's like an evolutionary process of planets.
It is not meant in the sense of literal physicalness. You are talking about something that is an interdimensional concept.
Okay.
And a sun in one dimension is not necessarily a sun in your dimension.
Right.
It is the seed, to some degree, the heart, to some degree, of what can be considered a sun in some realities, but it is not a literal description of what is going to happen to the planet in your physical reality.
Okay. Thank you. I just wanted to kind of get a feel on that because It popped into my head, and then I had a dream about it. a couple nights ago. I noticed my dreams have been becoming more and more active lately. Right. Yeah.
This may be the result to some degree, again, of breaking down the barriers between one physical reality and parallel realities that will allow them to overlap and allow you to have a more lucid adventure on that realm.
Okay. Thank you. Yeah. All right. And then I was wondering if you could talk about the Shalanaya at all and kind of where they are at with connecting with us and interacting with us in this timeline.
They are observing and participating in what is going on now as you all pass through what we are calling the eye of the needle and this transitional pivot point, and how you come out the other side, all of you, will determine the efficacy with which they can maybe continue to communicate and connect with many of you toward the idea of future contact, but also recognizing that some individuals will pass through the eye of the needle in a way where contact may actually be less probable. So they are watching and observing what is going on in this pivotal point as you all pass through what we call the eye of the needle.
Well, great. Thank you so much, Bashar. My love to you and the Esther.
Our unconditional love to you as well. Good day.
Good day.
Hello.
And to you, good day.
How are you, Bashar?
Perfect. And you?
Very good. It's nice to see you.
Thank you for the co-creation of the interaction. Please proceed however your imagination so desires.
Sure. Okay. Well, thank you for visiting with us today, and I have a few questions for you.
Yes.
So I'll just get right to it. I have a question about that I see that's very prevalent right now within the spirituality communities of a lot of people believing in conspiracy theories that don't have a lot of rationality to them. They're seeking to find, and to be honest with you, from a basically self-soothing and a self-serving place, it seems to be things that they're focusing on that really don't help you vibrationally or help you to keep yourself calm about things. I'm speaking, of course, about things like 5G and Bill Gates taking over the planet and stuff like that.
Yes, we understand.
Why is there such a interest in so many people within those communities to find and seek information that is below the radar and say, this is truth, but everything that's kind of scientifically proven and just rational on so many levels in this time-space reality that we live in, why do they seek things that are on that level as their truth, or this has to be happening?
Well, first and foremost, you do realize that now and then there are such things as conspiracies on your planet, yes?
100% agree. Yeah,
all right.
100% agree.
So since that has been, shall we say, laid as a foundation of possibility, and since many people on your planet have been fed a diet of fear-based beliefs for so long, and because people feel disempowered, they will often see the idea of laying out a certain conspiracy theory as a way of gaining control over their world by either aligning with it or rebelling against it to give them some sense of their position in the world, some sense of control in their reality, which more often than not, they don't feel they have. So by exposing things that their mind can wrap itself around in a way that says, I have a complete understanding of what's really going on here, and I am either attaching to it or distancing myself from it, it gives them a sense of control that they don't ordinarily have in their lives because of all of the fear-based beliefs that they have been fed growing up on your planet.
Interesting. That's very fascinating.
Yeah.
Let's see, what was my next one? My next question, I had a question for you. I was thinking about this last night in bed. You're kind of like our genie in the bottle. You know, we can ask it. It's like,
please do not rub me 3 times.
I won't do that. I'll keep you comfortable. That made me laugh. That's pretty funny. So I say that because, I'm like sitting in bed last night going, well, I had the opportunity to talk to basically a hybrid extraterrestrial in the future, and paraphrasing your
yes, so to speak.
And so to speak. And I wondered, is there a question you've always wanted someone to ask you and from our perspective that's never been asked?
No.
Okay. Well, that was easy.
We always allow for the synchronicity of what comes up to be what needs to be there. Remember that in that sense, we don't want.
That's a very good point. That all came full circle there pretty instantly.
Yes, we perfectly trust the timing of whatever it is that comes up. There are things we have always been curious about, but we investigate them on our own, or again, we allow synchronicity to provide the timing for such a subject to appear.
Right. I understand that. So I'll move on to a personal question for me.
Yes.
I've been involved as a journalist of sorts, a documentarian of the spiritual community. I've been blessed to be able to work with some people who are very well respected, very well followed. And as of a couple of years, I've been deeply involved in the community. And as of a couple of years ago, I kind of had, I wouldn't say a falling out. I don't know a better word to say it. It was kind of just an ending of the energy. I kind of saw things getting toxic in the communities, and it just did not. Anyway, things ended in many ways, and a lot of friends transitioned. Things transitioned. A lot of friendships ended and stuff. I personally had a pretty difficult time with it over time, trying to navigate this, because it's one thing when, you see, I got into this community early on for my own spiritual interest and involvement, and got into meditating. And
is that then what you take from it and what you will continue doing, having thus then served its purpose?
I feel that gets at my question right now. Over the past year or so, or a couple of years since all this has gone down, I have a real hard time connecting from a meditational standpoint. I used to meditate and connect really deeply, like soul of the universe, travel in the cosmos type meditations.
Yes.
And these days, it's very hard for me to connect on that same level. I do make the efforts to do so, but I also see the whole community from a whole different perspective. I see that all this stuff works, obviously, but I don't, run around.
So why would you continue to assume that a technique that used to work for who you used to be would still work for who you are now?
That's a good point.
If you have changed, if you have absorbed what you needed to absorb from your experiences, then the idea is that you are a different person who will now do things in a different way that actually is more in alignment with who you truly are. So the question is, are you applying the ideas that you have learned more outwardly in the physical world, or simply insisting on using the same old permission slips that are no longer necessarily relevant for who you are?
Well, where I'm at these days, this is where I come out with it. I'm at a place where I'm, of course, I'm a very creative person. I'm a very artistic person. I, of course, delve myself into my arts and my creativity, because that is my deepest connection. So I guess that's my answer right there. So
can I then not say, is that not enough? Is that not your new meditation?
Yeah, that's very true. I understand what you're saying. I think on some level, I feel, you're bringing up some very good questions. I think on some level, I kind of miss that, being able to tap in that deeply and feel that release and that relief.
Oh, but you will, if you understand that the new way of doing things will also take you there, but it will be a different experience. You may be just as deep, but it won't necessarily feel exactly the same, because you're not the same person. So it will take you deeply, but it will take you deeply in a new way for the new person you are. You have to let go of the older definitions of what you think it's supposed to look like when it's working, and let it work in the new way that is representative of all that you have become.
I understand that. I mean, I play music. I've always played music. It's one of my, and I tap in very clearly there. And I guess I you just made something that's very obvious, very clear. So I appreciate it.
Don't look at this as a wall. Look at it as an arrow pointing in a new direction. If what used to work doesn't work, that's your first clue that something else needs to work that's more representative of your true passion and your application of your passion in your world.
Okay.
You're transitioning into a new way of doing things as a new person. This is natural and normal and will continue to evolve in a variety of ways. You have to let go of the anchors that hold you to the past and assume that there are things now pulling you toward your future.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, I completely
Does that help?
agree. That helps greatly.
All right.
If I could ask one more thing, at least, with this event, with the current COVID-19 pandemic fear and everything that's going on the planet right now, years from now, 5 years from now, what will be coming of all of this? I do see Mother Nature trying to heal. I see it as a teaching mechanism greatly right now.
Yes,
I do see it as
that's one of the things you are learning, as we have said recently in the transmission called the Eye of the Needle. It's an opportunity to strip away all those things that are no longer relevant for the new realities that you prefer, so that when you go through the Eye of the Needle, having streamlined yourself down by letting go of bags that won't fit through that narrow passage, then on the other side, you have much more opportunity to accelerate yourself and allow the idea of experience of the reality that you prefer more and more and more every single day. So this is an opportunity to change yourself in ways that will make the new realities that you prefer to experience more available, more accessible to you on the other side of this passage.
Yes, I understand that. And I find it, I actually, something just popped into my head that I remember you saying years ago about even a lot of people who follow you and listen to the teachings that you give are always wondering when the extraterrestrials are going to show up, right? You know?
Yeah.
And
we have given you a general window for the beginnings and continuation of open contact. But again, these things fluctuate a little bit depending upon what you do with the information that you have. So while the window in general is still somewhere between your years of 2025 to 2040, it will depend on what you do, as will then determine what you experience and how much of it you experience and how soon you experience it. For there is a lot of fluctuation still going on, a lot of decisions being made, a lot of choices still being made, and each and every one of those choices will determine where you fall within that window, if you fall within it at all.
Yeah, I get that. And I think it's funny, it's kind of ironic, because you had said years ago that, you know, one day when UFOs and the whole concept of extraterrestrials and stuff, one day when it's all revealed, it's not going to be like, oh, it's like this big thing. People are going to be like, oh yeah, well, it's kind of been that way. And yesterday, or 2 days ago, our Pentagon, our government literally confirmed and released three videos and said these are actual UFO craft. And there's so much stuff going on that I'm just like, this is actual confirmation from the government saying
yes, it will come in little, as you say, dribs and drabs in a variety of ways. So it is an indication of the beginning of those things. Nevertheless, it's still based on whatever vibrational frequency you choose to be, whatever belief systems you choose to align with. That will determine how much more or how much less of that information you become aware of, depending upon the reality that you choose to create.
That's wonderful.
Yes.
Well, I don't want to eat up any more of your time, but I appreciate greatly you speaking to me, and it is our passion and our pleasure. Again, we thank you for the co-creation of the interaction. Thank you, Bashar. You take care of yourself.
Of course, and you as well.
Thank you.
Hi, can you hear me?
And to you, good day.
Oh, good day. Thank you for this interaction.
It is, again, our passion and our pleasure. Please proceed.
I have 3 questions if we have time. The first is the most important. It's a question about forgiveness of others and demonstrating unconditional love.
Yes.
The others are a number of close and previously trusted family members and also close friends who've not been happy for myself and or my partner about our us or our life choices, perhaps jealousy to some degree.
All right, but please begin with your important question. We'll get to the others in a moment.
Okay, well, my question is that about them and how we achieve total forgiveness, that is unconditional love, for these particular people.
All right, and are you familiar with what we have recently delivered as a 5-step process for going through the eye of the needle that includes the first step being forgiveness?
Yes, I know how important it is that we must forgive them and unconditionally love them. But
well, do you understand that if you maintain a connection to things like the idea of self-incrimination or that which has in your mind trespassed, as you say, against you, do you understand that you anchor yourself to that reality?
Yes.
Well, if you understand that, then why would you want to continue to anchor yourself to a reality you say you no longer prefer? Forgiveness is literally the cutting of the chain that anchors you to a past that you say you no longer prefer. It's letting go of anything that you believe you need in order for you to move forward, so that you understand that regardless of what anyone else may have done, the idea is that you realize that you no longer prefer to connect yourself to those ideas and maintain the vibrations that are lower than you prefer to maintain, and are really willing to be free to create the reality that you prefer by snapping those chains, by cutting those ties, by forgiving and letting go and realizing that they have their own path and that it's none of your business what they choose to do with it. So that you can be free to walk your own path by not anchoring yourself to those realities, those vibrations, those frequencies, those actions that they may or may not have done in physical reality, or what you may have imagined that they have done that you see as vibrationally incompatible with you and your preferences. But as long as you anchor yourself to them, you are still choosing them.
Yes. And I think that's where my question lies, is how to deal with that. Like, if it was a past event, I can see how you can accept it's previously happened and now it's time to move on from that. It doesn't serve you anymore. But some of the behavior that we're experiencing from these people it's not just ongoing, but it has an effect on other relationships, in particular children. And so it's like an ongoing feeling of being...
All right, but remember that feelings are the result of what you believe to be true.
Yeah.
And what is it you are teaching your children in terms of how to respond to these things?
Yeah, well, the children are in effect not wanting contact because of what they're being told about.
Then maybe they are telling you something that you need to also pay attention to. Why are you maintaining a contact with something that you say you are no longer vibrationally compatible with?
Yeah.
So if you can answer that question for yourself, you will realize that perhaps whatever it is you have shared with them about your particular reality, your particular belief systems that you prefer, is not necessarily something that they may choose. And if they don't, then it's none of your business. Move on. Sure. If you get to a point where you realize that no change is forthcoming, that they're not going to make a choice to vibrationally align with you, why would you perpetuate contact with something that is not representative of the reality you prefer? That's number one. Number two is, again, if you are going to at least allow them the opportunity to consider that they might even change, you have to show them through your actions the consequences of their choices. Otherwise, you're not even actually giving them an opportunity to say, oh, she is removing herself from our reality, and therefore, if we actually do prefer to continue to have some kind of relationship with her, we're the ones that are going to have to change because she's showing us the consequences of the choices that we're making that are not compatible with what she prefers. So if you don't actually move away, you're not even giving them an opportunity to decide whether or not to change. You're only perpetuating the ideas that you find vibrationally incompatible by staying around and reinforcing that it's okay for them to keep acting the way they're acting toward you because you're willing to accept it.
Yeah.
So you have to take responsibility for your part in the creation of the perpetuation of the vibration you say you don't prefer. And that's why forgiveness is not only about forgiving them, but also forgiving yourself. That's part two, remember?
Yes. And those that are influencing the children and other family members and other friends.
But as I said, no one is influenced unless they choose to be.
Yeah, sure.
If you really understand you are in your own reality, then the only way you can experience what you call an influence is to accept that what is being said about you is true. And then you influence yourself by matching the frequencies you're being offered that you say you don't prefer. And that's why we asked you, what are you teaching the children? Because if the children themselves recognize that they don't have to choose to experience influence from something vibrationally incompatible, then they may be showing you the way to allow yourself to recognize that you cannot be influenced by anything you don't agree with. And if other people are choosing to create agreement with something they find vibrationally incompatible, choosing to create what appears to be influence by others, again, all you can do is let them know there are other choices they could make, but only to a point where you yourself are not anchoring yourself to those realities and then allowing your vibration to diminish so that you also feel influenced when you don't have to.
Yes, thank you.
You really have to let go of things that are no longer relevant for you.
Yes, and it's that recognizing that it just doesn't serve us at all to feel.
And that's, in essence, forgiveness.
Yes. Yeah.
You have to let them have their path while you don't deny yourself your own path. You have to be true to everyone, not by being responsible for them, but by being responsible to them to be yourself, regardless of anything they may have ever done. You have to let it go. Otherwise, you are simply remaining where you say you don't wish to live.
Yeah.
Does that help?
It does. It does. And on that theme of forgiveness on the wider level, we know that there is the extreme damage to our ecosystems and our planet, with a significant contribution to that from animal agriculture and the inhumane conditions in which animals have been kept. Including
and therefore, what would you like to do about it? Again, forgiveness doesn't mean you can't do something about it, because if you're going to transition yourself to a reality that you prefer, you still have to take the actions that you would be taking in that reality.
Yeah.
That are representative of the reality you prefer. So how are you transforming your preferences into actual representative actions that are more reflective of the reality you prefer? What actions are you taking in that direction would be the answer.
Yeah, well, we are ethical vegans, so we are choosing not to take part in that treatment of the
That's
animals.
one step.
Yeah, but
what else could you be doing?
Well, we need to be forgiving those that are involved.
But can you also be educating? Can you also share information that demonstrates the idea that this may not necessarily be the kind of choices that you or others may wish to make? If you give them alternatives, they may choose those alternatives. Again, you can't force them to. And remember that that's not necessarily the world you live in just because you can see it.
Yes.
You understand?
Yes, I do.
But give them an option and they may take it. If they don't take it, fine. It's none of your business whether they do or not. But if you give them an option, if you give them information, if you give them education that there are alternatives and how beneficial those alternatives might be for them, then at least you are doing the most you can do to give them the option to change, the option to align with your particular perspective. But that's all you can do. But you have to take some actions if you wish to give other people a chance to change.
Yes. Yes, and we do certainly try to educate and use skills to assist people who are activists who need assistance.
All right, then you are doing what you can.
Yeah, and in the idea of forgiveness, in the theme of forgiveness, those people who are educated or do have the information and choose still to continue for profit or because it's easier to do so,
then that is representative of a reality you don't live in. Just because you can see it doesn't mean you're in it.
Yeah.
You have to understand it's like there's a glass wall between you and that reality. You can still see through the wall. They can see you, but nothing can get to you through that wall. Sure. Just keep living in the way you prefer to be living and being a living example of choices others could make should they decide to do so. Remember, you never change the world you're on. You change yourself and you shift to another already existing version of Earth that is already more reflective, bit by bit, more and more every day, of the version of Earth that you prefer to experience. But you never change the world you were on. That world will continue on its own and may be a very destructive world. But you will no longer live in it. In the years to come, you will no longer perceive it. It will look like the world you are on has changed, but it never does. You change and go to another world that already exists, that's already more reflective of the world you prefer to be on.
Oh, that's amazing. That's brilliant.
That's how it works, because everything exists at the same time. Therefore, it's only separated by frequency. This is one of the things that we are talking about in this particular transmissions monologue. More specifically, is the whole idea of how to more effectively and more consciously navigate different parallel versions of reality so that you can more consciously navigate through those versions and experience more of the kind of alternate universal realities that you prefer.
Awesome. Thank you.
Anything else?
The final question I've got is a slightly different topic.
Yeah.
As soon as we were discussing this transmission between myself and my partner, our cat has showed immediate interest. Yes. And he has been acting as our guide in higher energy since we made big life changes and have been following our highest excitement. He's been a really big part of it.
Well, cats can see many things that humans often cannot.
Yeah, and we were wondering to what extent we may be likely to find evidence that he is an ET slipping out in and out of different dimensions and realities. Because we've been dreaming about him as a different
All cats are extra-dimensionals. All cats are extra-dimensionals. Now, that doesn't mean they don't have a physical component that remains on your planet. No. But all cats have the capacity to go through a revolving door in their consciousness that allows them to tap into extra-dimensional sources of energy and information, and that's why their senses can perceive things that most humans cannot. So in that context, all cats are extra-dimensional beings, a part of which is represented by the animal you perceive physically in your reality.
Yeah, brilliant.
Now, all beings are that way. What we're saying is cats are more aware of the fact that they're that way and therefore exhibit more of the traits of being extra-dimensional beings that simultaneously coexist in many different realities, just as you do, but you're becoming aware of that, whereas cats have always been aware of that. That's their nature, that's their purpose, that's their reflection in your reality, is that everyone is extra-dimensional constantly. It's just that they're helping you become more aware of that, to tap into that more concretely, more consciously, with more awareness and more action. Yes?
Yes. Well, all right. He's been playing a part a lot in our dreams during the pandemic. So we normally travel with him. And we've been stationary with him. And he's really been a big part of our dreams, including belonging to other people with a different name. And being a totally different being. He's been a big, fluffy, sort of wildly excited dog in one of our dreams. Yes. But it was really him each time in the dream. So
the consciousness of the cat will be what it ever needs to be to assist you, to reflect to you what you need to know. So in that sense, cats are, to some degree on that level, what you might refer to as shapeshifters.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you so much.
We thank you for the co-creation of this interaction, our unconditional love to you.
Thank you.
Good day, Bashar.
And good day to you.
Thank you very much for making yourself available in this way. I appreciate the opportunity to co-create with you.
It is again our passion and our pleasure to do so.
Thank you. I appreciate April and Emmy and Daryl and everybody that puts all this together. So I just wanted to share my appreciation.
We thank you and our deep appreciation to you as well for the co-creation of the interaction. Please proceed.
Thank you. The first topic I'd like to talk about today is crystals.
Yes.
You had mentioned before that you actually sculpt with crystals. And,
well, not the crystals that you understand. It's a kind of crystalline nanotechnological substance.
So it's like liquid crystal?
Similar to that idea, but different again. It is a substance that exists on a deep subatomic nanotechnological level that can take many forms according to how it is manipulated by the energy of the sculptor.
And is that also how you make the dashboards for your ships, which you also said were crystal?
It is the entire ship that is made that way.
Oh, cool.
Not just the dashboard.
And how did the Atlanteans use crystals?
They used crystals by fine-tuning them to create different effects, both for transmission of light, transmission of auditory frequencies. They understood the idea of the vibrations that are inherent in certain crystals and how to carve them so that they would be tuned to certain frequencies and allow for long-distance transmission of information and also for the production of light.
And that was a function of the way that they were shaped in carving?
Partly, yes.
Wow.
And the purity with which they were created, or mined, if you wish.
I see. And we seem to be having a surge in interaction with crystals now. Are they helping us in the Age of Awakening?
Well, again, remember that everything is a permission slip, yes?
Yes.
But they do have an inherent reflection of being a very pure form of organized information. In other words, they are recording devices. And so those that are sensitive to the vibrational frequencies of certain crystals that are arranged in certain patterns will be capable of extracting the information that has been recorded into them and also capable of imbuing them, infusing them with information in terms of their energy matrix as well.
And
so yes, they can be of great assistance at this time as a permission slip to allow a sensitive individual to heighten their sensitivity and expand their senses to access information from existence itself.
The next topic I'd like to move to is, you told us before about some animals on your planet. I think you called them zebes. And
Aziza. Aziza.
Aziza?
Aziza.
Aziza.
Are you referring to the idea of the zebra-striped whale-like creature?
No, you had talked about them living in forests, that they were most closely related to what we would think of as cats.
As cats, yes. All right. Something similar to that idea.
So I'm just curious about more about the animals that are on your planet and how you interact with them.
Well, we interact with them just fine. Thank you. We trust the synchronicity of when an interaction occurs. We don't have to seek it out. It just naturally happens. And the symbol that they represent for us becomes very apparent when and if such encounters will naturally, synchronistically occur.
Could you describe one of those?
Encounters?
Yes.
Someone may be walking along through one of the forest areas on our planet and may encounter a particular animal, if you wish, the cat-like animal that we do call a zia. And the idea is that then, knowing that that animal has a certain symbology in our collective consciousness, it would be like suddenly interacting with a portion of the collective consciousness that the animal is reflecting to us like a mirror, so that we will understand that the synchronicity of having that encounter will put us in touch with the vibration on a higher level of a portion of the collection of our entire civilization. And the purpose for that happening at that particular moment will simply reveal itself and make itself obvious as to enhance our own understanding of ourselves and give us a chance to experience a higher perspective of ourselves as it relates to the collective consciousness of our entire reality.
So they're symbols of alignment? Is that what you're saying?
All things are symbols of alignment, but the animals are, in a sense, symbols of alignment to certain very specific archetypal representations of our collective consciousness, in much the same way that yours are too. In other words, many people on your planet look at the idea, let's say, of your dog as being symbolically representative of the concept of companionship and service. You follow me?
Yes.
Therefore, when you encounter the idea of a dog through synchronicity, you are dealing with those archetypal levels of the idea of connection, relationship, companionship, and service to society.
I see.
And therefore, depending upon what the animal represents as part of the collective consciousness, as its archetypal representation, that's what you would be dealing with as an energy at the moment of that encounter. Now, that can simply unfold in a variety of specific ways, but that's the generalized idea.
Sure. Sure, I understand. Thank you.
All right.
I've been very engrossed and spent a lot of time with the Atlantis, the Orion, and then the Orinoco transmissions that you gave us at the end of last year.
Yes.
You were talking about it's the time to remember with Atlantis, and that we are the ones who are resurrecting a similar lifestyle to what they enjoyed in Atlantis. And I was very excited to hear that you suggested that these stories be kept alive, or that these pieces of information be kept alive in story. And so I have been very excited and writing a story about who we were in Atlantis and who we are now and how all those things fit together.
All right. How exciting.
It's the most fun I've ever had writing the book. Yeah. The characters seem to have a life of their own, and that I just discover rather than create. It's really a fun experience.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Is there anything that you would like to share with me in terms of if there's something particular that would be the most powerful to get into the book? Mostly I'm using it as the opportunity to share the message of who we were in the past and who we are and where we're going in the future as, those who are here to resurrect.
All right. Well, we will leave that mostly up to you. But again, you will find that in the so-called explanation of how you can meditate on the parallel reality of the United States of Atlantis, there may be information in there for you that will help expand your understanding of your connection and expression of that idea and that concept.
I see. Very nice. And then I was curious about the Peruvian, the ancient Peruvian stone buildings. Are those built from the people that left the Atlantis area after it was destroyed?
Yes. This is why most people on your planet, while they have this idea that Atlantean architecture back then looked more Grecian, that is not the case. It actually looked more Aztecan, because Aztec and Incan architecture are remnants of Atlantean architecture.
And so are most of the Aborigines that are remaining on the planet today, are they descendants of the people that departed from Atlantis before it was destroyed?
Some of them, not all of them, but some of them. Some come also from the earlier civilization that you typically call Lemuria as well, and other civilizations that have been on your planet that you are simply no longer aware of because they have faded into your history.
I see. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate your time. And if there's anything else that you think would be helpful for me to know about while I'm writing, both in the past idea of us.
Your higher mind will inform you of it. And again, you can take advantage of what we will explain in the upcoming description of how you can meditate on different parallel realities.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Bashar. I appreciate you.
And you as well. Our unconditional love to you. Good day.
Thank you. Good day.
And to you, good day.
Excellent. Wonderful to speak to you today.
And you as well. Thank you for the co-creation.
Excellent. My first question is, as far as the chrysalis and expansion of ascension throughout worlds, like how you had Shakana expand your collective and integrate your collective, does that reflection and does that pivot point, how does that take forms in multiple worlds? And how would that take form in our world that's maybe slightly different from your world?
Well, it has taken form in your world, and the way that it was different is that it has expanded over time through multiple teachers, rather than simply one particular historical event. So the idea of Shekinah on our world can be expressed on your world as the idea we have discussed many times of what you archetypally refer to as either Christ consciousness or Buddha nature or Krishna spirit or many other ideas of master teachers in different cultures on your planet spread out over time, all delivering similar messages that have a cumulative effect, leading you to this point of transition now where you bring that information with you and you make it work for you in an accelerated way. For us, it simply only needed to happen in one particular moment. For you, it's stretched out over time.
Understood. So it's just time for us to get along with it.
Yes.
Excellent. My next question is going through this chrysalis time when people are experiencing such resistance and heaviness right now with the shadow of physical reality during this time. What is, and I like how you're talking about many of the biblical references during this time of forgiveness and the Lord's Prayer. Yes. And the idea of it's hard for quote unquote, I know this is a metaphor and not exact, but for a rich man to get into heaven is challenging, but that just denotes to fear-based systems and greed.
Yes, it's only talking about the idea of negative versions of attachment. It's not talking about whether you actually have physical wealth.
Yes.
It's talking about the accoutrements that often go with it that are fear-based.
Yes.
And so that's why we bring up the idea of the eye of the needle.
Yes. So during this time of this ascension process, it really seems to be, while people are going through a lot of financial hardship, it's about staying present with your energy. Yes. And doing what you can do in your excitement, regardless of what happens. So it's the circumstances don't matter, is showing us more and more extreme ability and options to exercise this truth for us.
Yes, as long as you stay aligned with your integrity in terms of the actions that you take and strip away the idea of the fear-based beliefs, then you will streamline yourself to make it more feasible, more probable for you to go through the narrow passage of the eye of the needle and come out the other side in a more accelerated way and in a closer version to your true self.
Excellent. And through all the teachings of all the esoteric wisdoms of the mystery schools of all ages, all the practices from the very beginning, maybe from the teachings of the sages and the extraterrestrials, all have been leading us to awaken our dormant genetic material.
Yes.
Yes. So really it's the time to really be more convicted than ever than spiritual practice and internal cultivation and development and letting go of the external.
And in physical application. Yes. Remember that physical action is the language of physical reality. And if you're not actually taking actions that are representative of that spiritual awareness internally, then you're not speaking a language that anyone can hear.
Yes. Oftentimes I have a little bit of fear, maybe going back to past sessions where you talk about as the years go on and the energy accelerates, that you don't want to get left behind. So stay in that frequency. So I might have created, I want to be very careful of not jinxing myself or helping others unjinx themselves.
But watch the idea of the definition that you're holding on to, because the very thought that you can jinx yourself is part of what we're talking about that might be wise to let go of. And just assume that if you do your best, you'll be fine.
Got you. So don't second guess yourself. Stay in a state of conviction of knowing.
Yes, the idea of using the phrase being left behind is actually just another way of saying you're making your choices. You're making your decisions as to what you say you prefer to align with. That's all it means. So you will experience the consequences of your choices. That's all it means. So if you make choices that are more in alignment with who you really prefer to be, then it's not about framing it or phrasing it in the manner of being left behind. You will be in the reality that you chose to be in. And if it's the best you can do in terms of the choices you make, you'll be fine.
Excellent. I love that. And with the release of the Pentagon releasing UFO footage for the first time, has that brought your ship a little closer, perhaps?
Tiny bit.
Just a little bit?
Because it's just the beginning.
It's just the beginning. Because there's been an increase in UFO activity, has there not?
No, there has been an increase of your awareness of the activity that's going on all the time, and that's a big difference.
Excellent. And through all these changes,
Yes.
as the stock market, like personally, I've been playing the stock market gains and losing, and I'm using this experience to neutralize and accept my decisions and not getting hard on myself.
All right.
Using this as a valid exploration of self-mastery to
You can certainly do that, but again, please do remember not to ignore all other forms of abundance.
Yes, absolutely, which is the most important. And I see maybe that's a big issue with people that play the stock market is focusing too much on the financials when there's so much more beauty to it.
Because your stocks can rise with synchronicity. Your stocks can rise with being given gifts. Your stocks can rise with your imagination. Your stocks can rise in your ability to trade for what you need. Stocks can rise in all these forms and other forms of abundance. There is not only one stock market.
Wow, I love that. Going back to the idea of remembering your value and investing in yourself during this
Absolutely. And that comes with what? Appreciation.
Yes.
It's not an accident that you use these same terms for the idea of your financial reality. Appreciation, valuation, so on and so forth. These are things you need to give yourself so that your stocks will rise.
Excellent. Bashar, I had a powerful dream the other night of an anaconda.
Yes.
And it was very powerful because this anaconda was very calm and peaceful. And a bunch of little kittens were running around as well. And we all had a wonderful time enjoying each other's company. Can you speak a little bit more about the anaconda and the representation of the symbology in the dream?
The archetypal symbology has to do with connecting to ancient wisdom and the idea of unfolding some of the dormant DNA structures.
Wonderful. So
it is not an accident that your caduceus is two intertwined snakes, which is the idea of the genetic markers of DNA.
Yes, which is a symbol that I feel is really misunderstood this day and age, as it's a symbol of, on most hospitals, but a lot of people have forgotten and don't even know any clue about the ancient meanings and the history of where this comes from.
Yes.
Yeah. So maybe that's a big education for us to take place, to educate the lineage of where these things come from, of those great teachers, probably from, Tote himself. Is that right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And others as well.
So in the idea that caduceus, as far as pinnacle health and evolution of DNA and genetic material, this is all coming back to the idea of the internal state of consciousness and vibration is the first thing to consider as far as health.
Yes. And it will open up more of the markers within your genetic makeup that will allow you to extend your senses into other dimensional realms, hence the kitten.
Wonderful.
Because cats can see into other dimensions.
So even the kitten has a representation. Maybe all the different animals have a representation of what can be had in the expansion of our senses.
And we just actually dealt with that particular question with another person.
Cool. So this goes back to the idea of the cryptic and merging with nature and connecting greater with nature.
It goes forward to that, yes.
Beautiful, beautiful. And the last question I have, as far as the world is going and finances, that
which world? The one you're in, or the one you're simply observing that is simply vibrationally incompatible with what you prefer, that you can see but are not part of? Which world?
I guess the world that I'm seeing that's slowly coming, that a lot of people might have negative belief systems about, as far as the IMF making a world currency.
But again, you navigate yourself with your actions in following the formula and following your passion. You navigate yourself through the parallel reality timelines that are representative more and more of the world you prefer. Remember, again, you don't change the world you're on. You change yourself and you shift to another version of Earth that coexists simultaneously with the one you used to be on. That one continues in its own way. And again, just because you might be able to observe portions of it You're looking through a glass wall that separates that reality from the one that you are choosing to live in. So even though you can see it, it doesn't have the ability to get through the wall to affect you unless you choose to be affected and shift yourself and tunnel yourself through that wall to the other reality. So learn from what you're seeing as a way of contrasting what you do and don't prefer, and know that you are, through your actions and your vibrational choices, in the reality you prefer, regardless of what you see around you happening in other realities you don't live in.
Wonderful. Taking full ownership of your vibration and your conviction and confidence.
Because just because you can observe a reality you don't prefer doesn't mean you're part of it, if you remain neutral in your observation.
Excellent. So playing with the stock market, I have to be very careful that I don't fall into that collective traditional Wall Street energy.
It's not about being careful, because again, that implies that you might accidentally slip instead of just continue to make conscious choices about what you prefer.
Excellent, Bashar.
Watch your definitions.
Thank you so much. That helps me extremely much, and I'm always extremely grateful to interact with you and love you very much. Thank you.
Then we extremely and unconditionally love you as well.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Thank you.